Welcome to Indus Special. I'm Ejaz Haider. India's RSS-headed government has breached India's tenuous compact with occupied Kashmir, removing the fig leaf of Article 370, which gave occupied Jammu and Kashmir special status within the Indian Union. In other words, India has annexed the area occupied by it. Pakistan has responded by downgrading diplomatic relations with India, suspending trade and rail link with that country, and is formulating a strategy for a diplomatic offensive. Occupied and now annexed Kashmir is under a complete lockdown with no communication links within or without. Kashmiri leaders are under arrest, including those leaders who alternated as India's quislings and sought to give India's occupation some form of legitimacy. Hindus supporting the RSS project are already using Nazi language and slogans and speaking of the final solution. So far, the world hasn't woken up to the tragedy that has befallen millions of Kashmiris. The security forces, already armed with draconian powers, now have carte blanche. Numbers are being circulated about how many thousand Kashmiris would need to be killed to completely crush any resistance to this annexation. Dissenting voices within India are scared. When we were trying to put together a panel to discuss this issue, analysts from India either regretted or said they could speak only if they were not identified. Meanwhile, some people have suggested, and unfortunately, some of them also include Pakistanis, and I'm talking about the social media, that Pakistan should annex Azad Kashmir and agree to making the line of control an international border. Let it be said that this issue is not about territory to be carved between India and Pakistan. This is about Kashmiris' right to self-determination. Neither India nor Pakistan can take unilateral or bilateral actions to make this into an issue of real estate. Going further into the program to discuss these developments, we are joined by Lieutenant General Waheed Arshad, the former Chief of Staff of the Pakistan Army, Salman Akram Raja, who is an eminent lawyer, Muzzamil Thakur, who is an analyst, a Kashmiri based in London, and joins us from there. Ruwa Shah, also a Kashmiri based in Istanbul, is also with us. Let me begin with Ms. Shah. Ms. Shah, one of the ironies was when this happened, and I came across this tweet by Ms. Mehbooba Mufti, where she said that India had broken this compact, and so today Kashmiris feel that they being part of India are no more a part of India. So I responded to that, saying that, well, it was always occupied, it's now been annexed. But the irony is that these leaders were the ones who were seeking to give some kind of legitimacy to Indian occupation.
Right. And Mehbooba Mufti and leaders like her have not been the representatives of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Let's also talk about that. They might be elected representatives, but that voting percentage or the reasons that people cast that vote was something else. The fact that Jammu and Kashmir has always been an occupied territory, disputed territory between India and Pakistan, does not give any kind of legitimacy to leaders like Mehbooba Mufti or Umar Abdullah or any mainstream leaders to say that whatever they are saying now, that it is the darkest day in the history of India's democracy or whatever. The thing is, we have lost something that guaranteed us the security of our land. It guaranteed us the cultural ethnicity that we have. And India has unilaterally taken a decision against that. It is an international dispute. You see, Pakistan is a party to it, and nobody should stay silent over it. And Mehbooba Mufti does not have the right to talk about it right now. It is millions of Kashmiri people who should speak, and the world that should speak for those millions of people.
Those millions of Kashmiris have been speaking constantly, and I think that is a message that needs to get across very clearly to the world. Muzzamil, I have an article in front of me by Siddharth Vadarajan. I was actually trying to get him on the program but couldn't reach him. And it says, so after being pampered and appeased, the poor Kashmiris whose special status, and special status is in inverted commas, brought them benefits such as human shields, half-widows, pellet blindings, fake encounters like Patribal and Machil, torture and disappearances, need to brace themselves for a bout of tough love. And I think that expresses the reality that has unfortunately, always been Kashmir?
The irony is that even with the special status 370-35A, we've seen how special we really are for the Indians. Gross human rights violations, mass murder, massive graves. You have rape victims, the use of pellets, it's continuous. So taking this away, the law itself was not necessarily a protection for just our land, but also it maintained the image that this is a disputed nature, this is a disputed territory. By unilaterally getting rid of Article 370, essentially what they've done is not only broken their own constitution, but they've also broken the United Nations resolutions and the United Nations Charter. But again, going back to what you said in terms of the special status and the special nature of Kashmiris, things will only get worse. Now, this tough love that they're talking about, how much worse can it possibly get? It's unfathomable to think the kind of human rights violations that have happened to the extent of genocide, ethnic cleansing, war crimes and crimes against humanity. These are unending. If anything, these things are going to get worse. But the problem right now is the fact that the international community have not intervened. Although I've mentioned this before, that we don't have such people like Desmond Tutu or Nelson Mandela anymore, but there are people out there, intellectuals, academics, lawyers, philosophers, that can surely, especially Nobel Peace Prize winners, or even those that have been simply nominated, they have a role to play. They have a major influence in the world community, and I think that they should start making a voice for the people of Kashmir. But I would say that the way to do that is for Pakistan to engage them. Pakistan must engage them because at the moment the Kashmiris have been silenced, all communications have ended, and we are not sure that when they will be able to be reopened. So it is the responsibility of Pakistan at the moment to engage the wider community and get them in contact with those people that are in the diaspora that can relay the correct information.
Right. Salman, on the legal side, of course, if we were to remove Kashmir for a moment, and the whole idea, the kind of social media campaign that the Bhakts are mounting in terms of, this being a Muslim problem and all of that. Just focusing on the issue of federalism itself in the Indian Constitution, the manner in which they've gone about to hollow out 370 by going via 367, is that something which is dangerous in and of itself for the idea of federalism?
Yes. Well, more than 370 and 367, to which we should come in a moment, it's the abuse of Article 3 of the Indian Constitution that is a direct threat to Indian federalism. Now, Article 3 says that a state can be reorganized or added to or area taken away from it only with the reference, I would say, consent of the state legislature. Now, what they've done here is that they've completely hollowed out Article 3 of the Indian Constitution by first removing the elected government in Indian-occupied Kashmir, imposing governor's rule, and then imposing presidential rule, which meant that the President of India, in effect, becomes the government of India, a government of IOK, Indian-occupied Kashmir, and the Union Parliament becomes the legislature of Indian-occupied Kashmir. So they've sought the consent of the Union legislature, whereas Article 3 clearly says that it is the state concerned whose legislature should be consulted. So what they've done is they've bypassed that mandatory requirement of the Indian Constitution in order to carve out Ladakh away from Indian-occupied Kashmir and to create a new union territory. Now, if this were to be done with any other state, and in theory it could be done, so tomorrow any other state in the Indian Union could be subjected to the same fraud, that you remove the elected government, you dissolve the elected state assembly, vest powers of the state assembly in the Union Parliament, and then consult the Union Parliament to do whatever you want to the territory of any of the states of India. So this is clearly an affront, I would say, to Indian constitutionalism and the entire legal constitutional community of India, including the judiciary, should take a stand. One expects that any pretense of constitutionalism now is under threat. And if the Indian legal fraternity does not stand up against it, then they all become complicit to a fraud against the Indian Constitution.
To fraud against the Indian Constitution. Jalal Shah, sir, on the strategic side, it's interesting that they started sending in troops. Then there was a lot of LOC violations. They even used cluster munitions. And the impression that they were giving in the run-up to this entire thing was a complete fraud in itself, because that there's some kind of terrorist threat from Pakistan and all of that, while in essence they were actually mounting this constitutional coup from within. What are our options now in terms of broad strategy?
I think it's interesting you mentioned, move of troops and all those actions being taken. It's called strategic deception.
Yeah.
So when you want to do something strategic, then you also mount a strategic deception plan. This is exactly what they did. Yeah. Everybody thought, and all Indians, most of them also thought that perhaps, there's going to be crackdown, the line of control is going to be hot, and all this deployment, everything is because of that. Even the warning to, people to move out was because of the impression being given that the security environment is going to deteriorate because of Pakistan and, line of control. Yeah. It's not surprising that they've done this. It's part of the BJP manifesto for since long, and they vowed to do that. I think the most important thing to understand is the timing and the reasons for that timing. And there are a lot of formulations going around, whether they did it because the one situation to getting, or after President Trump's two statements, they wanted to tell the whole world that nothing doing. Please don't talk about Kashmir. It's our own internal matter. So there could be many reasons, but most important of all is that the way they, as Salman is saying, actually steamrolled the whole system within the country. Opposition, they didn't take due democratic process of, when you talk to the Indians for the last 2 years, we've been talking to them and we've been saying that you want to change Article 370 and 35A, and everybody used to say, no, it's not very easy. It's a long process. It will be debated in the assembly, legislature, so on and so forth. They didn't do that. They just bypassed everything. So there was no democratic process being followed while they did it. I think what is important now, although Pakistan has taken up a lot of steps, I think the right thing to do what they've done. They could have gone much stronger also. We might actually. Mm-hmm. But I think what is important is that two things. One is the reaction of the international community is something which one needs to gauge and understand. Till now, it's very muted. The United Nations Secretary General didn't even have time in 3 days to meet our permanent representative there. She could only meet his chief of staff.
Yeah.
There is no statement from the United Nations itself that actually this is on their charter.
Yeah.
It's a disputed resolution as per the Security Council's resolution. So there's this country which has thrown it out of the window, and there's been no word from the United Nations. Then the international community...
That's where we need to be more forceful. And I think Muzzamil's suggestion that we need to also reach out to intellectuals, academics, a number of...
I think that's very critical, because unless you build a consensus-based international pressure on the United Nations, as well as international players like the US, the EU, Russians, even, I haven't except for a statement by the Chinese, which obviously they have their own concerns about Kashmir. Everybody else has been very cautious, very muted, and...
Chinese were very open about it.
They were, obviously, because they are directly, affected because of it. But that is not enough. Only China... so I think it is important that the diplomatic outreach and offensive by Pakistan must, take more strength. And this is what we need to do, because we don't want to go any other route than diplomatic offensive, than to, convince the international community that this is something which is, if it is acceptable to the world today, it can happen in any other country, any other region. This is actually making a mockery of international law, as well as, constitutionalism and human rights, and we all know what is happening in the occupied Kashmir.
Absolutely. Ruwa Shah, from my conversations with Kashmiri activists, going back 5, 6, 7 years, there was an increasing sense, lately, that the BJP government is likely to do something to 370 and 35A. So I believe the Kashmiris were fearing this, but what was the extent of that fear in terms of it being actualized by the BJP government?
You see, this step is not something that made us surprised. Of course, we are shocked. The Kashmiri community is shocked everywhere. Perhaps we don't know about the people of Kashmir who are in a literal cage, jail, open-air prison right now. But definitely not a shock. It was always on the manifesto of the Bharatiya Janata Party. But they also planned it accordingly. You have to see the timeline of things that they did. If you see the Joint Resistance Leadership or the Hurriyat Conference, most of the leaders of that party are in jail since 2 years. And the tallest leader, Gilani Saab or Mirwais Saab or Yasin Saab, all of them have been silenced by the Indian government for a very long time. So they did not also give them a lot of time to strategize or to think about it. But I think people of Kashmir were always speculating this, and without any constitutional consultation, without any discussion in their own parliament, and going against the own verdict of their Supreme Court, in fact, and the Constitution, as you said, this was not expected. And the Indian government already knew and are aware of the repercussions in the valley, the reactions that it will produce in the Indian occupied Kashmir. That is why it has been, it has been put under such a tight siege right now. And I think whatever silence we are seeing right now in Kashmir is just the silence before the storm. People of Kashmir are definitely going to react to this today or tomorrow, whenever the curfew is lifted or whenever any kind of, in fact, I think there are already some movements going on, but the world is just unaware of whatever is happening on the ground in Kashmir right now.
Absolutely, it's a complete lockdown. It's even the landlines are not working, and they had already issued these satellite phones to various officials, and that's the only mode of communication right now. But Muzzamil, the point really is that, as Ruwa is saying, and I agree with her, that the Kashmiris will take to the streets and all that. But what I'm hearing, at least in and through the social media, these Bhakts and all of them, and these numbers about actually killing 8 to 10,000 Kashmiris, and that will be the end of it. They'll be totally crushed. So it seems to me that this is really now not even a covert genocidal project. It's a very overt kind of thing that they're planning.
Absolutely. They've been saying this for a long time, obviously behind closed doors. But now the fact that the BJP have won the elections again, come into government again, they have all of these extremists that have joined into the party and have taken senior leadership. You have Yogi Adityanath, you have Pratigya Thakur, who's a convicted terrorist, and now they're talking about this morning that there'll be a scrapping her conviction. So there is a serious concern about genocide and ethnic cleansing in Kashmir, but I would like to remind everybody that we've been suffering since 1947, and we're survivors. We will continue to be survivors. And irregardless of what the Indian state decides to do inside Kashmir, what further atrocities they wish to commit inside Kashmir, as Ruwa said, there will be a massive repercussion against them. One aspect of it, which I have considered, is the Jammu Kashmir police. With the revocation of Article 370, they would become null and void. They have no role to play anymore. But at the same time, they are still Kashmiris. They have investments inside Kashmir in terms of families, jobs, careers. And I think that they may be one of those people that could react one of the hardest and the most. There has been a protest in Kargil earlier on today. I did not see the Jammu Kashmir police show any mercy to those protesters. However, once they themselves realize the impact of Article 370 being revoked and Kashmir being turned into a union territory, I think that they too will react heavy-handedly. And I also do wish to mention that the timeline that Ruwa mentioned is extremely important because it started over a year ago. Modi government have been planning this meticulously over the last year by first banning Jamaat-e-Islami and JKLF, then the National Investigation Authority locking up various individuals, including wouldn't mind me mentioning this, but including Ruwa's father, who has been incarcerated for more than a year, including Gilani Saab, Mirwais Saab, Yasin Saab. There are hundreds of those people. And even today, as of today, we have some information that more than 400 people, community leaders, businessmen that are slightly influential, they have been picked up and jailed. So there is a serious concern that ethnic cleansing and genocide comes in many forms. It's no longer just with guns and bullets. There are many, many forms as well. And I think that we need to start focusing on securing the safety of the common people of Kashmir.
Yeah, thank you, Muzzamil. In fact, I was on, actually, I should have mentioned that Ruwa's father is also one of those leaders who have been incarcerated for the last year. She's very graciously not mentioned that, but that's a fact. Ruwa, one last question before I let you go. I'm still very concerned. I mean, as I said, I agree with what you've said about the Kashmiris reacting to this. But I'm really concerned about the safety and security of the Kashmiri youth, because this state, which is clearly now very fascist, is not going to show any mercy, and I think that's a strategy that needs to be looked at, or at least thought out, well before people actually react that way. Would you agree, or do you think people are so fed up that they don't care anymore?
It's this dilemma that we are going through right now. As much as I want to believe that those rumors about all the killings and all the protests that are going across the streets of Kashmir right now are not true, it's equally hard to believe that they are not true, because we know the nature of the youth of Kashmiri youth, and we know that India right now has pushed the youth of Kashmir to that level where I don't think there will be any negotiation at any point by this generation with India. I think there was a soft corner for a lot of people of Jammu and Kashmir for India, and we are seeing on social media everybody feels betrayed. They feel betrayed. We were already in that frame of mind. We already knew what India is doing with us, but as you said, the fear is that there will be a lot of as much as we hope that it does not happen and pray that it does not happen, but India will definitely show no mercy. And that is exactly why they have deployed thousands and thousands of extra troops on the streets. Otherwise, in an already largest militarized zone of the world, why would you need so many army again on the streets? So I think we have to be careful. And youth outside Kashmir also, the youngsters, there are a lot of Kashmiri people who work in India, in different states of India, and they have already started to sense that fear of hatred and bias against them by the common Indian people. I mean, I can give an example of my cousin who is just 18. She studies in a college in Delhi. She called me crying the day it happened on 5th August. And she told me, can you please explain to me what is happening, why I'm being harassed or bullied in my college? What does this article mean? A totally apolitical 18-year-old asking this question when Indians were celebrating the death of their own democracy. This should tell you that how people in India, Kashmiris in India, Kashmiris elsewhere, or Kashmiris definitely in Kashmir are in grave danger right now.
Celebrating the death of their own democracy, words weren't spoken. Thank you, Ruwa. Thank you for being on the program. I'm going to take a short break, and at the other end of the break, continue with our discussion of these developments. Stay with us. Welcome back to Indus Special. We're discussing India's move to scrap Article 370 and to turn occupied Kashmir into occupied and annexed Kashmir, and also to sort of turn it into a union territory. And as Salman Akram Raja pointed out, that they completely hollowed out their own Article 3 and then went on to hollow out 370 through 367. And as Salman said, this is basically something that strikes at the very idea of federalism in India. Let it be said that Pakistan and the Kashmiris never accepted 370, so that's something that needs to be put on the table straight away. I'm also joined for this segment by Dr. Inshah Malik, who is a writer and academic and had a book out, Muslim Women, Agency and Resistance Politics, The Case of Kashmir. She joins us from Kabul. Thank you, Dr. Malik. I will shortly get to you, but let me just first ask Salman another question with reference to the Shimla Agreement. Shimla Agreement very clearly stated that no party will unilaterally take any action that sort of changes the status quo. And it says one thing about the, and it's not just about the line of control, because that provision is separately given in the Shimla Agreement. So does this mean that Shimla Agreement and with it, the line of control is now also dead and interred?
I mean, that's debatable, certainly debatable, because the status quo that existed when Shimla was signed clearly included Article 370 and the special application of the Indian Constitution to the state of Jammu and Kashmir occupied by India. Now, what has happened in effect is that they've removed that, the intervening instrument between the Constitution of India and the state of Jammu and Kashmir. They've applied the entire Constitution of India and thereby taken away the protection against the identity of Jammu and Kashmir that Ruwa was earlier talking about. So any kind of demographic engineering can now take place in Jammu and Kashmir, and that clearly is a most serious threat. So one could argue that the status quo, the situation on the ground that Shimla envisaged, included all of this. And in departing from that, they've in effect rendered that agreement as hollow as the Indian Constitution itself. But the question then is, what do we do about it? I mean, we can consider ourselves released of Shimla, but where does that take us then? So that is the next step to consider. What happens if Shimla is no longer on the table, or if we feel we are not bound by Shimla? Do we then go back to some kind of a multilateral solution? Shimla bound us to bilateralism, or at least that was the argument made by India, even though in the text of Shimla itself, bilateralism is only the initial or the preferred course of action. It does not entirely exclude the intervention of third parties or of the international community. So we could have, one could argue, could have done that anyway, but now I think there's absolutely no hitch, no barrier in our way. We have to take the matter to the international community and really jog the minds and the conscience of the international community here.
General Arshad, quickly, one with reference to line of control. And secondly, the foreign minister in his press briefing today mentioned the possibility of a false flag. This was also something that the Prime Minister mentioned in his policy statement during the joint session. So the question is, if there's going to be a false flag, and then we know the drill that India, so how far are we prepared for that kind of fallout on the ground?
Just first a word on Shimla. I think it was dead long ago. Okay. To be very honest, I mean, it says without prejudice to our respective positions. So Pakistan has been raising this issue for long now on international forums. Whenever situation in Kashmir deteriorates, and India has been using it to, sort of beat the drums of bilateralism without really actually negotiating anything on it.
Correct.
So the only thing Shimla did was to accept actually that Kashmir is a dispute between the two countries. Yeah. Now, with this step, is a dispute between the two countries? That's the key question. Will India accept this part of Union territory? So why would they accept bilateral negotiations in Kashmir? I think they'll only talk of Pakistan's part of Kashmir now, if they want to talk of. And you read the operative part of this change, they even have seats in their own legislature for our part of Kashmir. So they can go now that route. Second, false flag. I mean, I think a lot of Indians even now acknowledge that Pulwama was a false flag. There were no, after the initial, accusations, there was no investigation. There was nothing like it happened after Mumbai. It happened after, Pathankot or Uri, but nothing happened after Pulwama, after the initial day or two. Everything is quiet. There have been no word on who did it, who was what was the network, what were the local supporters if there were. So I think false flag is a real possibility, and it won't be the first time.
Yeah.
But what is important is to understand and obviously strategize when it is going to happen. I think it will take some time. One, I think the reaction is still building up, both international and people are understanding the implications. Even the Kashmiris are actually in a state of shock at this point in time, as Ruwa was saying, and most of the people are behind bars, the leadership.
Yeah.
The youth obviously is now leading the movement. But what the Indians have done is that instead of going after the leadership of the youth, they are targeting the networks, which is spread all over the occupied territory. So they will use this kind of strategy of false flag only when the reaction starts to build up aggressively against this action in the occupied territory. Mm-hmm. And the international community maybe, hopefully, realizes that this is something which is totally against international norms of diplomacy, of international relations, of human rights, of international treaties, UN Charter, and so on and so forth. If that kind of pressure builds up, and domestically, although Congress is down and out, but still domestically the pressure will build up because there will be petitions in the court because of this unconstitutional act.
Yeah.
There will be opposition against it, already there is. So when this all pressure builds up, as we have seen earlier also in past years, the only where this pressure cooker is released is to do something, some act along the line of control, accuse Pakistan, or there is this terrorist attack and Pakistan is accused of supporting it or doing it, and then the whole attention diverts. And so I think it's only the timing.
So it's essentially going to be about the Kashmiris. So let me just pull in Dr. Inshah Malik on this. Dr. Malik, so your book talks about agency and resistance. Given the situation, and given the sort of intentions, at least the expression of those intentions on social media by these bhakts and other Hindutva handles, what is your sense of what could the Kashmiris possibly do that could sort of build that kind of pressure or take it to some kind of critical mass?
Well, at this moment, I think we are not really shocked because we have lived through the de facto occupation of Kashmir for the last 70 years. And what we have seen, and when we talk about in terms of Article 370, is the last remainder recognition of an independent, rather not independent, but or recognition of a British Dogra state, right, that Dogra had carved out. So what 370 does is it overnight changes the demographic and the situation in which the world knew this state has existed. But this is not a shock for majority of Kashmiris because we already know that a lot of them have been protesting over the years for independence to a greater extent for independence or for the regional independence. But coming back to now that India has also taken away the little autonomy that some of the Kashmiris felt was enough for Kashmir to continue as a state under Indian Union, I think that is over. That dream has been crashed, and I don't think any Kashmiri at this moment is thinking that we have a route. Yes, we could go to the Supreme Court, and it could be challenged in the Supreme Court, but given the right-wing fascism in India right now, which has become a kind of accepted majoritarian politics, there's no hope for Supreme Court to actually deliver any sort of justice in this case. And what Kashmiris are fearing is it's a simple annexation of their land. So till now, if at all their land was protected from the occupation, of course not otherwise in terms of like the army was occupying so much of our land already. But if we're talking about land being taken away by settler colonialists coming from mainland India, then we are talking about a large mass level of displacement of Kashmiri people. So at this stage, I think a lot of Kashmiris think that it is important to internationalize Kashmir as an issue of self-determination, and where Kashmiris have the final say on how it should be dealt with. I think a lot of Kashmiris will argue that we should, actually come together and at least in the pan-Kashmir region, and see complete demilitarization and the referendum, which was already recommended by the UN. Because we have been ignoring that, and we haven't moved forward, neither in the agreements, neither in the bilateral talks, neither in anything else. But what should have happened is actual putting the force behind Kashmiri right to self-determination at UN and ICJ and other international bodies. This is what most Kashmiris are thinking right now.
Okay, that's interesting. Muzzamil, what do you think of what Dr. Malik is saying in terms of steps going forward?
She's spot on. This is exactly what the common Kashmiri is thinking at the moment, taking this to the United Nations Security Council. There are resolutions already there that protect us, that grant us and guarantee us certain provisions and rights. And also the common Kashmiri is also trying to target the International Criminal Court and the International Crimes Tribunal. The Council of Justice, the Court of Justice. The problem is that there are limitations of non-state actors trying to go to these places. So we would still need some level of support from Pakistan. There are loopholes in which we are trying to explore. But ultimately, the people of Kashmir currently see 370 as you mentioned previously, a small fig leaf connecting us to mainland India. However, if you look at the constitution and you look at some of the laws that have been passed inside India, most of these laws mention that this law is applicable to this state except for the state of Jammu and Kashmir, or for India except for the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So they would have to redraft their entire constitution. That said, I think this is something that the BJP have been looking into since the 1950s. They've been looking into changing the constitution of India to make it into a very Hindutva-natured country. They've considered in one of their books that they've said that being Indian is not about the nation, is not about the borders, it is about the people. And we want to make the country as Hindutva as possible, make it as a Hindu nation. So secular democracy is completely out of the window right now. But coming to what the common Kashmiri wants and needs and what we're trying for, whatever that we need to do it is in a unified manner, but most importantly, it has to be seen as an indigenous movement, similar to, I know this is probably going to go way far off base, but similar to how the women's movement for rights and justice, the feminism movement, cannot be led by men. It cannot be led by men whatsoever. They have the agency, they have the right, it is their issues which they can represent better than any man can. Similarly, Kashmiris can represent our case better than any non-state actor could. And I think that at this point in time, it would be beneficial for Pakistan to accommodate the indigenous Kashmiris, be they residing in the diaspora or inside Kashmir, and take them along to the United Nations Security Council, take them along to the ICJ and the ICZ, take them along to the European Parliament, so that we can narrate our own stories and tell them factually what's happening on the ground, not just numbers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Muzzamil, for speaking with us. Quickly, Dr. Malik, the idea of accepting Kashmiris as a political movement, struggling for the right to self-determination. That's the kind of thing that, Pakistan needs to do, as Muzzamil is saying, and I completely agree with him. Is that what you think is the way Pakistan should move forward with this?
There's no denying that there are people in Kashmir who have love for Pakistan and who would, given the current political dispensation, would like to be with Pakistan than India, because they want to get rid of a very brutal settler occupation now, which has become overturned in a few days. But at the same time, what has been the problem for New Delhi to deal with the region has been a unresolved demand for complete freedom. And I'm not sure if Kashmiris will overnight change that stance, given that they have been put on the edge and even suppressed so much for expressing that need. Now, if you look at how lots of different polls that have been conducted by different agencies in Indian occupied Kashmir for the last 60 years, this has regularly come up that more than 70 or 80% of population would demand complete independence. And the analysts and the scholars and the thinkers and the think tanks in Pakistan cannot ignore that fact on the ground. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that if India cannot forcefully make Kashmiris accept their rule, neither can Pakistan. So that's a lost cause to go for right now. And what I want to see in the parliament right now is a complete backing of Kashmiri independence movement, so that, and I think Kashmiris are very capable to lead this movement internationally, and there should be, and it also saves us the cost of making this region a nuclear disaster, which goes very well with what Prime Minister Imran Khan also desires, given that we want a peace deal in Afghanistan as well.
Correct. Thank you so much. That was Dr. Malik. Before I wrap up, is there something we can do which is innovative? Let me throw an idea here. Tell the United Nations Security Council that we are prepared on this side to conduct a plebiscite in Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir. And without, prejudice to our position on Indian occupied and now annexed Kashmir. But get this done in order to create a huge contrast between the manner in which India has gone about annexing occupied Kashmir and our approach to determine and give that and let that be conducted by the United Nations.
I think Ejaz, obviously something different, something new will have to be done. One, I think both the speakers have made a very significant point, is that it is important now to give strength to the Kashmiri political movement. It is what the Kashmiris want is important. It's not what Pakistan wants or what India wants that is important. So I think at the strategic level, it is important to understand that unless the voice of the Kashmiris gains that international recognition in terms of a political movement, whether it is for independence or plebiscite or whatever, is not the issue.
Correct.
The issue is that it needs to gain that stature, that support, which, like for example, Palestinians have, or many other movements in the world have, which the Kashmiris unfortunately have yet to have.
Correct.
So that is important. Second, I think there is the whole range of ideas, like you're saying, which have to be innovative, which have to be out of the box, which have to be following a fresh approach. We've tried everything which we could till today, till 5th of August. So, we'll be doing nothing else, nothing new if we keep following the same old line. We have to do something different.
Absolutely. Salman.
Absolutely. The original Security Council resolutions envisage all of Jammu and Kashmir as it existed at the time of the Maharaja's so-called accession to be placed under common control before a plebiscite can be conducted. And this India has been using to formally deny the plebiscite, saying that first put it all under common control. So maybe we can go back to the Security Council and seek an amendment to the resolutions, saying that both the countries retaining their control over their respective parts of Kashmir are to conduct plebiscites. That would take care of that one objection that India has been able to raise all these years against the conduct of a plebiscite. That really is the stumbling block, formally speaking. I'm sure they'll find other reasons not to do it, but we would have called them out before the international community.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, time is up for this program, but I think we all agreed that we need to be innovative about this, because doing the same things over and over again is not going to get us anywhere. And I think the other important point that has come out of this discussion is to actually get the Kashmiris into the lead and accept their movement as a political movement, as a struggle to the right of self-determination. It's goodbye for now. We shall see you tomorrow.